Starting October 7th for 14 days, I've been on a marathon preparing for this, a seminar on the personalities from Ramayana, morning and evening. Keep me busy. I'm not learned in Ramayana. There are some devotees I know that are. My absorption has been Srimad Bhagavatam. But by the encouragement of devotees, and the pastimes are wonderful and so forth, and meaningful and full of instructions, I've taken on rather than telling the story of Ramayana as it chronologically goes. Here's a detail. One of the primary differences between a Purana and Itihasa is Puranas are not chronological. They're logical, but not chronological. And Itihasas are chronological. I mean, sometimes they go back to some other episode, but it's the whole of Ramayana is told multiple times within Ramayana, in shorter versions and expanded versions and the full version. But it's chronological. So the narration of the Ramayana is daunting. It can take a long time. And the personalities of Ramayana, it requires capturing a thread that's here and a thread that's there. Like yesterday, it was Vishwamitra. He does not appear again after the marriage of Sita and Ram. He goes to the Himalayas, and we don't hear of him or from him or anything. But he has a very important role to play in Ramayana. So far, at least in preparation for this more exhaustive or extensive personalities from Ramayana, we started with Valmiki, and then we went to Hanuman Part 1, and he's going to have 3 parts. And then Vishwamitra now, and then, the third was Vibhishan, and then Vishwamitra. So this is, I'm keeping track. I have to, it's a lot to keep track of. Vali and Sugriva. They were brothers, but they had different father. Although they had the same father. Their father, who was not their biological father, but their father was Riksharaj, and by the order of Lord Brahma, the various devas, they produced sons in the worldly realm in various ways. Not by the normal way, but by various ways. And Vali and Sugriva were brothers, had the same mother, but Vali was the son of Indra, and the elder of the two, Sugriva and Vali, and he was the king as the elder brother. This is a very old painting of Vali, and his younger brother was Sugriva, who was the son of Surya. And there's lots to say about him, but one of the things to say about him was he was very strong. And how strong he was, there's different examples. One of them was what he did after he got up in the morning. He could travel great distances very fast. So he went to the southern sea, the eastern sea, the western sea, and somewhere in the Himalayas before he had his breakfast. He just like would travel and do his morning rituals. He was a Vanara, but he followed rituals. And for fun, he would break off mountain peaks and play catch. And sometimes he would uproot strong and stout sal trees. Now, as far as I can understand, sal trees are like a special kind of hardwood. Kind of like what, at least I learned from Dinabandhu, is an Arjuna tree. When the Nalakura Viramani Griva became trees, it's a certain type of tree that has a really deep root. And it's really hard to knock it over, but Krishna knocked it over. So sal trees are very thick and hardwood. And he would just like pick up a tree and smash people and things, and he was really strong. And there's a long story about Dundubi, and we're going to hear some more about Dundubi, but he was Maya Danava's younger son. And Dundubi came to Kishkinda, where Vali was the king, and he challenged him. Oh boy, that was a mistake. And so Vali came rushing out, and he smashed him, pulverized him, grabbed him by the horn, threw him to the ground, thrashed him to death, and then threw him in the air a distance of 8 miles. It was a big, giant creature, like a bull. Humongous. We'll hear some more about Dundubi. He was stronger than Ravana. Ravana was stronger than the demigods, and Vali was stronger than Ravana. We see an image here. He's holding, looks like he's holding his tail, but the way that their narration goes is during that period of time when Ravana was traveling here and there, challenging everybody, he heard how strong Vali was. So he decided he wanted to fight with Vali. So he went to Kishkinda, and he went to Kishkinda. Vali wasn't there. There's a painting that shows he was in conversation with Tara and Sugriva, and he was told that Ravana has gone this morning to the southern ocean to perform his morning rituals. So you can just wait if you want. You can wait till he comes back. It won't be too long. He moves very quick. And otherwise, you can go and find him there. And good luck. So there's a whole series of these paintings that are readily available, and they're hard to follow. There's the 10-headed Ravana, and he's having this discussion with Tara and Sugriva about where is Vali. And over here on the left, that's Kishkinda, in case you didn't recognize it. And so he had this, when he went to the southern ocean, he had his push book of Vimana, came in for landing, and snuck up from behind, because he didn't know exactly how strong Vali was. And Vali saw him coming from behind, so he didn't even turn and look at him. He just tucked him under his armpit and finished his rituals, and then flew up in the air to the next place, the next place, the next place. Kept him under his armpit, came back and set him down. Said, "Okay, now what did you want?" No one ever did that to Ravana before. So Ravana was, the painting here shows, there's the 10-headed Ravana, there's the Rakshasas that are his buddies, and this is the Vanaras along with Vali. Notice Vali's wearing a golden necklace that was given to him by his father Indra. We'll hear some more about that later. And he decided, rather than fight him, let me make friends with him. So he asked for friendship, and Vali agreed, and they These, it says they were chewing pan and betel nut together. So he's very powerful, very, very powerful. And Sugriva, as his younger brother, looked up to and served his elder brother in all respects. That was the nature of their exchange. And he ruled the kingdom of the Vanaras from Kishkinda. One day, Mayavi came and challenged Vali. The name Mayavi means one who has mystic powers. And as it so happens, within Valmiki Ramayana itself, there's two different histories of Mayavi, like who's Mayavi. One history of Mayavi that's in Kishkinda, Kanda, it says, it's stated by Valmiki, that he was the son of Dundubi. Dundubi was the one that was tossed 8 miles. And he wanted revenge, so that's why he came to Kishkinda to challenge. That's stated in one section of Ramayana, and then in another section of Ramayana, the other version is Mayadanava, when Ravana was roaming about in a forest sometime, he came across Mayadanava with a young lady. The young lady was his daughter. So they had some exchange, and Ravana asked, "Who are you? What are you doing in the forest here? And who is this young daughter of yours?" So then he tells his story. My name is Mayadanava. Long ago, I was given in marriage an Apsara named Hema. We married, and with my mystic powers, because he has mystic powers, he had great affection for her. He was very attached to her. He built her a fabulous palace made of jewels and gold, and they lived together, according to what he said, for thousands of years. And then one fine day, 14 years ago, she left because there was some service. She didn't say what it was, some service for the Devas. And so I was brokenhearted, and now I'm wandering around in the forest with my daughter. Mandodari was his daughter. And with my wife, Hema, I had 2 sons, Dundubi and Mayavi. That's in the same Valmiki Ramayana. So there's no way to sort out, why did it say this here and that there? And I've asked some knowledgeable people, and it's one of those things. There's no reconciliation. So those are 2 different. Mayavi is the younger brother of Dundubi, or Mayavi is the son of Dundubi. And the version where he came as the younger brother, there was some dispute over a woman. And so he came to settle the dispute by having combat with Vali. And the other he was his Dundubi's son, and he wanted revenge for the death of his father. So whichever version you like, he came and challenged Vali in the dead of night, and roaring and making loud sounds, and Vali jumped up and ready for battle. As he ran out of his palace, he was followed right behind by Sugriva, and when he saw these 2 massive Vali and Sugriva personalities coming at him, he started to run. And when he ran into a cave. Mayavi ran into a cave. And when he got to the entrance of the cave, Vali said, "You stay here at the entrance of the cave, and I'll go inside and find him. Just stay right here, don't go anywhere." So being the obedient younger brother, he faithfully waited outside the cave for a whole year. He was probably pretty hungry. And after 1 year, there was a intense battle between Mayavi, he could hear the sound, and in fact a roar as they were fighting and fighting and fighting, and then suddenly a gush of blood, foamy blood, started flowing out of the tunnel. He didn't hear the roaring anymore. So he thought this means that Vali was killed. So he put a giant boulder, it says, as big as a mountain, to block the entrance of the cave. And the purpose of doing that was to protect the kingdom from the demon. And then he returned to Kishkinda with the bad news. Our king has been killed, because that's what he thought. And the ministers wanted him to take the throne. And he didn't want to take the throne, and didn't want to take the throne. We have to have a king. And so he accepted, reluctantly. Some time passed, and Vali came back to Kishkinda. And was really harsh. He threw the ministers that advised him to take the kingdom and threw him in prison. And he dethroned, Sugriva said, "Oh, this is what I thought, and let's get back to where it was. I'll be your servant, and you'll rule the kingdom, and everything will be nice again." But that wasn't good enough for Vali. He banished Vali from the kingdom, and he took his wife. He forcibly took his wife away. And as he was banished from the kingdom, that wasn't enough. Vali pursued him, and we find out later, when it's time for sending the Vanaras in the 4 different directions, he knows the whole of Bhumandala. And Ram asks him, how do you know all this? You speak like if you had first-hand experience of all these places. He said, I did. And because Vali was chasing me, and so I went to all these places. I've seen firsthand all these places. And he went here, and he went there, and he went every place. Finally, there was some advice given to him. Go to the area around the hermitage of the sage Matanga. And the reason is that when he threw Dundubi 8 miles in the air, some blood was dripping from his body, and some of the blood fell on the ashram of sage Matanga. And it was his ashram of the sage Matanga that you see him down here, that's sage Matanga. There's the Dundubi getting bloodying up his ashram. And there's Vali beating him up, throwing him by the horns onto the ground. This right here has nothing to do with his pastime. It's Ram shooting an arrow through 7 salt trees. That's what that is. And over here is Ram and Lakshman meeting with the Vanaras. This is Sugriva narrating the power of Vali and why he's staying in Rishimukh mountain, because sage Matanga made a curse. And the curse was, if he ever stepped in a certain radius of the Rishimukh mountain, which included his ashram, he'd immediately die. So there's a photograph of Rishimukh mountain. I've seen other photographs that look very different. This next one looks really different. It's one on the right, Rishimukh mountain. But the painting there shows some nice steps going up, very neat, clean steps going up. I don't know if it was like that. But Sugriva took shelter there, and some ministers, including Hanuman, were in his company. So we hear about Vali in Kishkinda, where Ram was sent, but by two different people, to find Sugriva, because Sugriva also lost his wife to some aggressor, as Ram lost his wife to an aggressor, and make friendship was the advice. And so they made friendship. And there is some idea of Sugriva then challenging Vali to combat. And if by challenging Vali to combat, when he comes out, Ram says, I can then kill him. And so Sugriva tests him this way, that way, because he's right to the end. He's really like skitterish. I guess he's been traumatized by being chased by Vali all over the planet. Not all over the planet, all over Bharat and Bhumandala. He's been all over the place. So he's intimidated by Vali's strength. How do I know? He's so strong. How strong is he? He narrates how strong he is, as we described. Because that's one of the rules, apparently, of combat, is you want to find out the strength and the weakness of the other party before you do battle. So Ram wanted to know the strength. Sugriva narrated. Sugriva wanted to see Ram's strength, which showed something, either shows intelligence or doubt. And Ram showed his strength. You know how Ram showed his strength. The 7 salt trees. And after the 7 salt trees, the arrow went down into the nether realm and all the way back and right into his quiver again. Sugriva said that. I'm convinced. You can, because Vali had shot an arrow through 1 salt tree. He was so strong. So Ram convinces or persuades Sugriva to go make challenge. Here's one of those old paintings again. Here's Sugriva making a big roar. There's Ram hiding behind trees. There's Kishkinda again. And the roar that he's making is making the birds fall from the sky. Really loud roar. And this is the second time around he came. We'll see this painting again, where Tara is trying to convince Vali to don't go again. So he goes, makes a big roar, and Vali, that's all, he just loves people roaring at his palace door. He wants to go fight at any time. Over here we see Ram behind a tree, Lakshman behind a tree, and either Hanuman or Sugriva behind a tree. No, Sugriva's over here. So this is Hanuman. And they start their fighting. Now notice, this looks like the second fight because he's wearing a garland, a vine. And over here is one wearing the golden necklace. This is Indra was really smart. Ravana wanted immortality, but he couldn't give him immortality. Brahma couldn't give him immortality. But Indra gave Vali a golden necklace or chest pendant that had the power to, whenever he was in combat, the half of the power of the combatant would come to him. So it doesn't matter how powerful the other person was. He'd have his power plus half of the other person's power. He wins. Every time. And something that I didn't hear till a little while ago from Nityananda Pran, Brahma confirmed it's okay. You can give that benediction too with this necklace. So it not only took away half of the opponent's strength, but it preserves the wearer's life, effulgence, and beauty. So you can't beat Vali. And they had a big battle. Ram couldn't distinguish between the two, although he's omniscient. So he couldn't distinguish between the two. And after some time, Vali was really whipping Sugriva. And there they are again. Look, there's Hanuman. They changed positions. He's saying Hari Bol over there. Okay. And so they go back to Kishkinda, and Vali doesn't enter Kishkinda because of the sage Matanga's curse. And Sugriva's huffing and puffing and, why did you promise that you would protect me if you had no intention to do so? You should have said so. I never would have gone in the first place. And Ram said, it's either diplomacy or something, because Ram doesn't lie. This is a dilemma. He said, I couldn't tell who's who, because you look alike. Monkeys might look alike to somebody. Now, why is Nityananda Pran around? No. Send him a text message and ask, how does one answer the question, did Ram lie? Because Ram doesn't lie. I'm anticipating that question. And there is an answer, and I can't recall the answer. So there was a purpose behind his saying not shooting. And so the purpose was, as it says here in the text, there's a hidden lesson. The hidden lesson, Ram was very careful, cautious, diplomatic in a good sense, not in the bad sense, of correcting people when they needed to be corrected. I'll give two examples. One of them is this one. When they made friendship, Sugriva was very respectful to Ram, and he took some leaves from a tree and made a nice place for Ram to sit and a place for him to sit, but didn't do the same for Lakshman. Now, Hanuman knew the etiquette, because he's Hanuman. So he made a nice sitting place for Lakshman. And for the commentators on Ramayana, Lakshman is the same as Balaram is to Krishna, or Nityananda is to Lord Chaitanya. They don't speak about Lord Nityananda, but same as Krishna is. He's the original spiritual master, Balaram. So you can't show respect to Krishna or to Ram without showing respect to the representative or the spiritual master representing Ramchandra. So it was a mistake. You could say it was a neglect, or you could say it stronger, it was an offense. But Ram didn't say anything at the time. But what he said was, I couldn't tell who's who. And so Lakshman, get a vine from the tree over there and place it around Hanuman's neck. And then as they're grappling with one another, the vine's not going to fall off, right? I mean, I don't get that one either. But, I'll then be able to see who's who. So as Lakshman was placing the garland around his neck, Sugriva had to bow down to Lakshman. And that's what he wanted, to make up for the mistake. Now, I wasn't explicitly saying, he just had him make that gesture of bowing before Lakshman. Everything's good. So Sugriva, by this time, has trust in Ram, so he's going to go back and have another round with with Vali, although he just got wasted. So he goes back, and there he's making his roar again. Vali, come out and fight. And Tara, over here, she's reasoning with Vali. Why would he come back so quickly? He just got whooped by you so badly. He barely escaped with his life. I heard from Angada, who did some spy mission, that Sugriva has made friendship with Ram. And Ram is all-powerful. He's got a friendship with Ram. That's what's making him so bold. Don't mess with Ram. My advice. Vali always recognized that his good wife had excellent advice. But this time, he didn't listen. It was fatal. He didn't listen. It was fatal. So he went charging out and started his fighting again with Sugriva. And when he did his fighting with Sugriva, they were fighting and fighting and fighting. And finally, Sugriva's on the ground and Vali's standing up. So Ram released his arrow. And he hit Vali in the chest, and he fell to the ground, wounded. But he didn't die, because he's got that nice garland on, or that necklace on. And he then starts to speak very harsh things to Ramachandra. And this is a edited version of something I received from Nityananda Pran, because he spoke on it sometime in one of his Ramayana classes. But I modified the language. After Vali speaks and says all his harsh things, the first words by Lord Ram are, "O Vali, it seems that with the deterioration of the body, even the intelligence gets deteriorated. You're accusing me of immorality without understanding the intricacies of dharma." So the way this goes is, there's what Vali says, the objection or criticism. What merit is there in killing someone who is not facing you? It's not, Kshatriya codes. I'm not in combat with you. I'm in combat with him, and you're shooting me while I'm in combat with him? Why kill me while I'm in combat with somebody else? And the answer, this is a really good one. Indra gave a promise that, if I'm in battle with you, Vali, then you're going to take half of my strength? No way. It would break the promise of Indra. So to preserve the promise of Indra, I did it this way. And I made a promise to Sugriva, and I keep my word. So he's hearing all these things. He gave all this whole series of objections. He understands and accepts. You have not punished the wrongdoer. The wrongdoer was, in his estimation, was Sugriva. Because Sugriva did a bad thing, and I punished Sugriva, you should punish Sugriva too, because he did a bad thing. The putting the big boulder on the cave and all of that. Ram's reply, your wrongdoing is evident. Exiling your son-like younger brother and abducting his wife. There's code specifically about the wife of the younger brother. And there's very strict rules in Vedic culture about the wife of the younger brother. And he violated it. Here's his fourth objection. In your country, that's the kingdom, or city, I did no misdeed. So Kishkinda is not in your jurisdiction. It's not in Ayodhya, in the kingdom of Ayodhya. And Ram's answer is the entire earth is the property of the Ikshvaku dynasty. So Kishkinda is part of the earth, so you're under the jurisdiction of the Ikshvaku dynasty. You punished me who am free from any guilt, I'm innocent. Oh no, you're guilty. Illicit connection with your younger brother's wife. It's not the quality befitting a king or leader. You're guilty. We don't have a dispute of land, gold, or silver between us. So that's one of the reasons for punishing another. When I left Ayodhya, Bharata and I had an agreement. He will rule over the citizens in the cities and towns, while I will rule over the forest dwellers under his jurisdiction. It's my duty to keep order. He's following dharma. Ram is a strict follower of dharma, and he knows the codes of dharma. Your primary aspiration is to kill without probing into good or bad. No, wait a minute. I know what's good and bad. I'm super soul. Or I know the codes of dharma. And there's going to be people who will criticize you, people that really know what the scriptures say. They're going to criticize you. I haven't acted against dharma. I haven't acted whimsically. Our predecessor kings, I've been following and abided by a duty and found within the scripture. He's very clear. Unnecessary killers are destined for hell. Well, if I didn't punish your wrongdoing, I would go to hell. For a king, if there's a wrongdoer and the king doesn't deal properly with the wrongdoer, the king receives the reaction of the wrongdoer. By giving appropriate punishment to the wrongdoer, the king is relieving the citizens and that particular person of the ill effects of the wrongdoing. It's the duty of the king to punish sinners who cohabit with their younger brother's wife. Killing such a sinner does not accrue sin. We have just a few more. You're killing an herbivore animal. He's vegetarian. And my skin or flesh is useless. You can't use my skin for any purpose. And there's injunction, 5 kinds of five-nailed animals are unfit for human use. Hey, I wasn't planning to use your body. Even you consider yourself an animal. According to Dharma, hunters may kill an animal from behind a tree or bush. And here's the last one. I would have brought back Maitili to you in one day. I've already demonstrated how powerful I am compared to Ravana. And I could have gone to Ravana and whooped him and brought back Sita very quickly. Just, you should have asked me. But you didn't ask me. The answer, Sugriva is like Lakshman to me. We mutually agreed to help each other recover our wives from our aggressors. Sugriva's mandate is to find Maitili, not to bring her to me. That was what, Sita had the sense to ask Hanuman, no, don't take me back, Ram should come. He was ready to take Sita to Ram. But that wasn't the assignment. The assignment was find out where she is and report back. Very simple. Find out where she is and report back. So after hearing everything from Ramachandra, he's purified, Vali. He's in a lot of pain, but he's purified from the anger that he was feeling. And with his palms folded, as you see, he's begging forgiveness from Ram. And Ram not only gives his full forgiveness, but he consoles Vali in various ways, speaks of him in elevated terms. Vali's breathing his last breaths. He removes the necklace that he's wearing, this special Indra necklace, and he gives it to Sugriva. He could give it to his son, because he has a young son. You see him behind. No, that's Lakshman. He has a young son. He could just give it to his son. Fathers often do that. But he gives to Sugriva as an indication that you are the one who I've offended, and please accept this from me and forgive my offense to you. He gives advice to Sugriva to to listen very carefully to whatever advice Tara gives. My mistake is I didn't, but whenever I did, she gave wise advice. Treat her with all respect and dignity. Angada, treat him like your own son. I'm making this parting request of you, and seeing the face of Lord Ramchandra, he leaves his body. And that's the end of the Vali story. Then comes, more about Sugriva. There's a lot because Sugriva is a very special person. Well, as we go along, Bharata, when they make their way back to Ayodhya, Sugriva doesn't know if he fits in because he's a monkey or a Vanara. And Bharata said, "You're like our fifth brother." So that's how much respect went to Sugriva, although he had his shortcomings. He made his pledge to Ram, but then he would return to his pledge after the 4 months of the rainy season. He got a little carried away with the luxury of kingdom and his queens and stuff. And he had to get reminded by Hanuman. He got reminded, and then he sobered up and reacted properly. That's a whole long discussion. The many lessons within that exchange about the duty of gratitude, the role and position of gratitude for one who has helped to return. When it's time to send everybody in all the different directions, he particularly approaches Hanuman. Ram hears him speaking, his total confidence in Hanuman being the one who will find Sita. That in turn is the final act before Ram gives to Hanuman his ring, personal ring, to give to Sita when he does find her. It's a very significant event, the empowering of Hanuman to find Sita. When they come back, Hanuman has gone to Lanka, found Sita and everything, informs the Vanaras. They're really, really relieved, joyous in fact, and they come back in a celebratory mood, so much so before they reach Kishkinda, they reach the forest with many trees and fruits and honey and this and that, and they go wild. They go monkey wild. And there's a Dandimukha who is supposed to look after that place. And he sees them tearing up the place, and he's in big distress. So he goes to tell Sugriva, who understands immediately. This joyous state that they're in is a very good sign. They must have found Sita. So he pacified Dandimukhi, just let them rip up the place. It's okay. He's understanding by signs of things. His skitterish side comes out when Vibhishan defects, and repeatedly, like 4 times, he says, "I don't trust him." This and that and the other thing. And Ram says, "Why are you worried about me?" Said, with just the tip of a little finger, I can destroy all the Rakshasas in Lanka. I don't need anyone's help, and they can't harm me, so don't worry. And I've already given shelter to him, so go back to him, and he gives his reasons and reassures Sugriva. It takes sometimes Sugriva to get some reassurance, but once he gets the reassurance, he accepts. So he accepts his conclusions, and it was Ram that wanted Sugriva to carry the message back to Vibhishan that he would be accepted. Because Vibhishan had the decorum to not go straight to Ram. He went through the representatives. And Sugriva was the chosen representative of Ram. He was greeted when he came to request Ram's shelter. So it was Sugriva that was sent by Ram. Go back and let him know that he's been accepted. He's acting like, like guru or representative of Lord Ram. While they're still on the continent side, Sukha, who is a messenger from Ravana, came and with a message from Ravana, look, this is between me and Ram, and you don't need to be part of this, and let's be friends. And Sukha was supposed to carry back a message. So Sugriva gave a very stern message back. Okay. Some very harsh speech. Strong, not harsh, very strong speech to Ravana. Get ready for battle. We're coming. When they reached Lanka, they saw Ravana standing on near the top of one of the gates, overseeing what was going on out there. And Sugriva couldn't contain himself. He jumped and smashed Ravana, and Ravana picked him up and tossed him down, and he bounced up in the air, and he harmed Ravana. And Ravana was stunned, like he was a powerful fighter. And he leaped back in the air to the place where Ram was standing by his side. A little impetuous, but he was a good fighter on Ram's side, very strong. There were many, many battles. We'll mention a few of them, but one of the first one that happens was Prakasta, and back and forth and back. All the battle scenes in Lanka. This and that. One got this one, and the other one got the other one, and back and forth, and finally smashed them. When Indrajit, by his serpent arrows, laid Ram and Lakshman to the ground, he was totally lost. Fortunately, Vibhishan was there, and Jambavan, both were there, and they remained composed, and they just knew that it would be taken care of, and sure enough, it was taken care of. But it's just his affection for Ram is very strong, very, very strong. There was a battle between the two. Ravana hit him in the chest with a powerful arrow. It doesn't say what happened afterwards, because Ravana had come out and he's going after different people, but he received an arrow in his chest from Ravana. When Kumbhakarna came out of the palace, giant, and he went for different people. When he came to Sugriva, they knew who's who. He's the chieftain of all the Vanaras. If I get Sugriva, they're going to be weakened. So he knocked him unconscious, and he picked him up, put him under his arm, and went marching back into Ayodhya, into the palace area, thinking, that's it. We got the king of all the other people, all the other warriors. He came back to consciousness, and he started letting Kumbhakarna have it. He scratched him, he bit off his ear, he bit off the end of his nose, he clawed his side, and he jumped back. Kumbhakarna didn't have that happen before. Sugriva was a powerful warrior. After Ram and Lakshman were cured by the herbs that Hanuman brought, he had a strategic plan. Now this is one of those, I thought you didn't fight after the sunset. You know that one? So apparently, I forget, this is another one, because it's going to come up. You want to go to Portland. The first evening's battle also went into the night, but that was the Rakshasas attacking. But there's some explanation that I can't recall. Why was it okay to fight at night? Because Kshatriyas fighting Kshatriyas. So they decided, and they fought. It was a good plan. Then there's various battles. Kumbha, Nikumbha, Virupaksha, Mahaparshva, very extensive discussions. You probably know them by heart, right? No? The battle scenes? You watch them. You don't read? Sometimes. It's a nice section, battle scene, nice section. Even if you don't read the other part, read the battle scene. It's really good. Boys like battles. I've learned. When everything is finished in Lanka, he personally comes forward, makes this very direct request: please take the Vanaras with you. And immediately, the Pushpaka of Vimana expands, and it's enough room for all the Vanaras. There's a lot of Vanaras. So there they go. And when they get to Kishkinda, he comes in for a landing. Invite your wives. Come for the big festival in Ayodhya. There's this discussion between Bharata and Sugriva, mentioned already. You're like a fifth brother to all of us, because he's feeling a little out of place. And then finally, this is the last for this little presentation. He attended Ram's coronation, and after the coronation, he and the Vanaras returned back to Kishkinda. We don't hear about Sugriva beyond that. I mean, Ram ruled for a long time, but we don't hear mention of Sugriva again. So these two brothers, the good guy and the bad guy. There's lots of good and evil, kind of, in really simple terms. Because Ramayana is teaching proper conduct. It's teaching many things. One of the things it's very strong in is teaching proper conduct. And abide by proper conduct. In simple language, it's just abide by the truth. And those who abide by the truth, they'll always, that's a principal virtue, and virtue will always be victorious over its opposite, vice, or those that ignore dharma. Dharma will always prevail. So uphold dharma, live by virtue, live by the truth. And Sugriva looks like he kind of wobbled for a while. He didn't wobble at the heart level. He wobbled at the sense level, because he became indulgent. And when you become indulgent, something happens to your heart. It gets covered over. But it didn't change. As soon as Hanuman reminded him, immediately, oh, thank you. And he, took proper steps to correct himself and sent his messengers to bring the Vanaras, many, many, many hordes of Vanaras from all over the place to come to fulfill his promise. And when although Ram was upset, or he had some transcendental feeling that this principle of not honoring your word is not okay. But when Sugriva came and offered his apology and explanation, immediately Ram, it was over. Ram didn't carry it and watch Sugriva, is he going to do this again or something like that. He just, the slate was clean immediately. Because his heart was, and Ram knew his heart. And so he had some sensual weakness, and he had some kind of, beat up by Vali kind of trauma thing, that he was very cautious and trusting people. But when he gave his trust, it was full. That's Sugriva. And Vali, he was proud. He was powerful, and he knew it. And he was very proud. And he was, he violated dharma with his own rationale of why it's okay. But it's not okay to violate dharma, even you have a rationale for it. And he had to pay for it. Powerful. More powerful than Ravana. Wow, that's powerful. But power that's not properly directed can be problematic for the person who has power and doesn't direct it properly. So there's lots of lessons within this narration. When I told you in the Jivana that looked like that's going to be our topic for tonight, depending upon the audience here, there's lots of lessons, lots of intricacies and lessons. So let's see if there's some discussion. Vali and Sugriva, yeah. Would you like to be the runner of the microphone? After she's finished, you take the microphone from her and pass it to the next person. Serve the Vaishnavas.
It caught my attention when you said Sugriva wobbled at the sense level, but not at the heart level. And I was thinking for myself, when I'm wobbling, how do I figure out if I'm wobbling at the sense level or at the heart level?
Well, one of the tests, it's not the only one, one of the tests is sadhu sangha, and immediately the light goes on. It happened with Dhruva as well. He got carried away when his stepbrother was killed, and he went after the Yakshas, and he was carried away, and the sages just tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey. Oh. And then it's the others, just words brought back the reality. Just instantly. So good association, giving, prudent instruction, then it, realigns the mind and senses with the heart.
Thank you.
One time I had asked you this question about, did Ram speak an apparent lie?
About which?
Did Ram speak an apparent untruth?
Okay.
And you had sent me a 2.5-page document answering my questions. So I don't know if you want to.
You want to summarize it, or you want to read it, or what?
Would you like to? I brought it up, but I can do it if you want me to.
Well, what do you think is better, 2.5-page document, or just summarize it? What are the points? My memory is so bad.
So
I took your question seriously and researched it. That's what happened, but I don't remember how I came up with.
Thank you, Maharaj. You wrote, there are multiple possible explanations. One of the Ramayan's commentators explains that this statement implies, quote, Sugriva, you are an offender much like Vali. I don't see a difference between you two, unquote.
Ah, that's a good one.
And then you say, second point, during the Dandaka Yatra, I mentioned that this statement is one of those that remains inexplicable because the Lord's words are profound. And you give an example, such as in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, yet thousands of years since the event, after thousands of scholars and devotees have commented, still there's some confidentiality in it. And then the third reason, Maharaj, you gave is, my recent response during a reading of Ramayana was that it is possible that both statements were honest and true, namely that Ram could not distinguish the difference between the two brothers while they were fighting, and one additional inner contemplation of Ram, namely he wanted Sugriva to correct his offense. That this second and internal reason was not spoken to Sugriva does not constitute an untruth. Rather, it displays the gentle and subtle kindness of Rama. Lord Ramachandra exercised his grace and his ability to correct another's mistake in a simple, non-confrontational manner.
This is going to come up in Portland. Can you send that document back to me?
I did, yes, Maharaj. May I ask another question, Maharaj?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that.
I find it interesting the way Lord Rama chose to correct Sugriva for his offense to Lakshman.
Yes.
So he made him bow down to Lakshman, but there was no...
He didn't tell him why.
Yes. So how does that correct a person's tendency for, again, making an offense?
Well, bhakti was the only way, and Lakshman is there's no guarantee, first of all, that you get corrected for an offense and it's never going to happen again. And last one becomes pure devotee. But, I think it's very reasonable to say that Rama understood his heart. And it was inadvertent. It was inadvertent. And he didn't need to, lay it on him or, explicitly. It's sufficient. So your question is how to know, what's the guarantee the same offense won't happen again? And there's no such guarantee other than pure devotion. And because when it's pure devotion, then the personality of Godhead controls one's everything. No, he had submission to Ram, but it wasn't as complete as it happened, in course of time. His submission in course of time became complete. Only when it's complete, it won't happen again.
So sometimes the Lord may choose to correct that in a way that, in mysterious ways.
Yes.
I would hope that, the explanation is given to me so that I, as far as possible... Really,
yeah, even if the explanation is given to you, there's no guarantee, right?
Yes, Maharaj.
Because they're saying knowledge alone is not enough. Knowledge is certainly elevating and purifying, but it's alone is not enough. Anything else? Over here.
Your question about usually the fight stops at sunset.
Yes.
So his response was, because this rule does not apply with Rakshasas, they become strong at night.
Yes.
This rule is only between two Kshatriyas.
Yeah.
So
I remember that. He gave me that answer one time. But I forgot. See, knowledge alone is not enough. Over here. Oh, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. The first question where Vali raised the question to Lord Ram regarding the reason why he attacked from the behind when he is not fighting. So is there a reason why Sugriva was kept as the face of the fight rather
Which of
than
the fight?
the phase of the fight.
The base?
Phase, yeah. Like he is fighting, but Lord Ram is taking the action of killing Vali.
Yes.
So, is there a reason why Lord Ram directly did not call upon Vali for a fight?
Yes.
To correct his
Yes.
mistakes?
Yeah, there is a reason. And it was the very first question. And the direct answer is, yes, let's say if that's option B. Option A is what he did. Option B would be, Vali, you've done it wrong. I'm acting on behalf of the Ikshvaku dynasty, and you're due to be punished. Let's have a fight. Or something like that. So that would were he to do that, he would be victorious over Vali, but it would violate Indra, because Indra gave a pledge or a boon that would then be lost, because Ram's not going to lose. He's not going to take half of Ram's power because he's wearing this, special necklace. So he didn't. He didn't violate Indra's word or Brahma giving the authorization to Indra to make such a benediction with such a necklace. He's not going to violate Brahma and Indra. So he's going to do it this other way. And it's within the codes of dharma, and it's upholding the words of the demigods.
Isn't it like he might have maybe fought with Vali in a hidden way, like the way he did now, even though he might have called him?
Oh, he could have done it other ways. Is that what you're saying? Sure.
Yes, Maharaj.
Why not?
So that question wouldn't have come up to question Lord Ram's dharmic principles, right?
Oh, sure it would have. Rather than a fight with Vali, rather than a fight with Sugriva, he does it some other way where he's like, it's not Sugriva's the go-between.
Yes, Maharaj. That's the question.
Okay. Well, he has some other intentions besides just that one intention. That is not violating the word of Indra and Brahma. He has another intention. The n number of other intentions. With one thing, the Lord accomplishes many things with one thing. So it's giving Sugriva, it's testing the faith of Sugriva. It's bringing Sugriva to the point where he's correcting an offense that he made previously. And whatever are the other reasons and factors involved in Lord Ramachandra deciding to do the way that he did it instead of some other way that he could have done it. The main consideration is, why did he not confront him directly? Instead, he's hiding behind a tree while he's fighting with somebody else and shooting an arrow. So there's other ways to do it too, sure.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Behind you, yeah.
I have two questions. One of them is about Vali. Like he had to get everything ripped away from him to come to that repentance or apologizing to Sugriva. That's because of his pride.
Yes, because of pride.
Okay. And the second one was about Ravana. When he was coming to fight with Vali, he was going to fight with him, but then he saw how strong he was, and then decided, I better be friends with this guy. But
yes.
But when he's faced with Ram, like he kidnapped his wife, and then I'm sure he's heard of Ram before, but like how come he wasn't able to make that kind of judgment? Like, this person is kind of beyond my.
Hey, what happens to intelligence when you've got, you're inimical in principle towards the personality of Godhead? Your intelligence kind of takes a vacation. Now, it can be operated in some ways, in some cases, because it's win-lose. A materialist is generally speaking very calculating about, get strength and don't win and don't lose. But the ultimate purpose of life is lost, and that which brings one to the ultimate purpose of life, it's a big block. We don't get some indication at the end of Ravana's life that a little light went on saying, gosh, I really, shouldn't have kidnapped Sita. And Ravan, please forgive me. There's no, we don't have any, I'm unaware of any indication like that from Ravan. But that happened. And so there was an opportunity for such an exchange with Vali that wasn't there with Ravan. Because Ravan's got he's a super demon. He's got another lifetime to live too. Dantavakra. Shishupal. Okay, over here in the back, your mom.
In the Ramayana, we find some nice devotees, or they're glorified for their qualities that seem to serve masters that are not very exemplary. So, for instance, Vali had this tendency for pride, and we glorify Sugriva's loyalty to his brother. We glorify how Tara served her husband, how Mandodari served Ravana. Would you please comment on, are these personalities exonerated from the sins of the person that they're serving because of their devotion? Or how is it that we glorify these personalities that are serving perhaps not great masters?
It's not a black and white. It's a very gray kind of area, as far as I'm aware. There's merit, and people who are meritorious follow the path of merit. There's merit in following your duty. Vibhishan followed his duty. Vidura followed his duty up to a certain point. And was Vidura implicated in all the shenanigans? Or was Vibhishan implicated? Or et cetera, et cetera. So, the role of the wife is not cent percent the same of the role of Vibhishan or the role of Sugriva or the role of Vidura. The faithfulness of Dhritarashtra's wife, Gandhari. Was she implicated? It's not that she didn't know. We don't know that she was involved in husband-wife conversations about all the skullduggery, but she must have known. Vidura knew. She must have known. But she was, loyal to her husband, and right to the very end. Right to the very end. So she was within your specific question is those persons who are assisting an errant individual, staying in conformity with their religious duty, is their culpability for the wrongdoings of the person who they're serving. That's the question. And a Vedic principle is one who performs their prescribed duty, and whoever these people are, they're following a principle of their duty as a brother, younger brother, as whatever. They're following their duty without attachment and offering the results to the Supreme. That's freedom from karma. Now, Does that absolve one from responsibility to act rightly when someone's heading for the ditch? Your brother or someone in the family is heading for the ditch and they're doing bad stuff. It's gray. The answer that you suggested, is there some bhakti factor here that says because of the bhakti factor, they're not held culpable for the wrongdoings of the person who they're serving? With Vidura, certainly the bhakti factor is there. And Sugriva wasn't so strong, but it became strong over time. So it's gray. Yeah. Do we have anything online? Yeah.
It seems at different points in the Ramayana that Lord Ram and his allies don't know where Sita has been taken.
Where what?
Where Mother Sita has been taken.
There's something wrong with the battery in that microphone. Can you just put the microphone over here and he'll change the battery?
Well, you can come close and it should work.
Okay.
It won't screech. Okay.
So, for instance, when the monkeys are at the shore and they're really feeling disheartened that we haven't found Mother Sita, we might as well give up our life.
Oh, that was Angada. Yeah.
Or when Lord Rama is not just sending the monkey forces to the south, he's sending them in all four directions in
Yes.
case she's somewhere. And yet, one of the objections that Vali had to Lord Rama's killing him was that I'm so strong, I would have brought Maithili back. I'm more powerful than Ravana. So is it known that, she's with Ravana, which would mean she's in Lanka?
No. It wasn't, well, on the one hand, Ram is omniscient, so he doesn't need information from anybody. But the reason for searching, my understanding of the reason for searching, although it was very clear what direction, Rakshasas can be anywhere. That may be like his hangout, and that would be a natural place to look, is where is his hangout. But they can be in other realms altogether, not just on some other place on the planet. In Bhuvar Loka, a whole section in Bhuvar Loka is a place where there's Rakshasas. And the Rakshasas can go down to the lower planetary regions. I mean, he wants to hide out something, he can hide out anywhere. So naturally they sent the best to the southerly direction. Okay, online. How are we doing with time? 8 o'clock.
This question from Sucharita Devidasi. The advice was given by Tara, and Vali didn't listen. It could also be that Tara or anyone, for example, your friend, can sometimes give you wrong advice too.
Wrong advice, yeah, they can. That happens.
Can someone who is under the influence of three modes of material nature be always correct in their advice?
How's that? I mean, that's a silly question. No. Next.
This is from Udayananda Das. Despite practicing deep devotion to the Supreme Lord, why did the Lord let Jai and Vijay take demoniac births like that of Ravana, Kumbhakarna, etc.? Why did he not protect them from Maya?
The answer is they had a desire. Jai and Vijay had a desire. And Narayana was fulfilling their desire. They had a desire. Our Lord, he likes chivalrous combat, but who can be a qualified combatant for him? our dear Lord, if you so desire, we can do that service. And so he fulfilled their desire.
You said that Vali kicked out Sugriva out of the kingdom.
Vali took Sugriva out of the kingdom.
Yeah.
He kicked him out, yeah.
So why did Krishna want Vali to kick Sugriva out?
Krishna didn't want that. When people do bad stuff, it's not that Krishna wants it. Do people do bad stuff in this world? Yeah. Does Krishna want them to do bad stuff? No. Does Krishna sanction bad people to do bad stuff? Yeah. Why does Krishna sanction bad people to do bad stuff? Because it's bad stuff. So why does he sanction it? Well, there's free will, and he doesn't interfere with free will. There's consequences for bad stuff. Karma. And, bad karma leads to bad action, leads to bad reaction. But, people making free will choices, and Krishna doesn't interfere. He advises them, hey, that's not a good free will choice. They go, look, I'm going to do bad stuff, all right? Okay. You're pretty determined. The modes of nature are there, and they're acting. They're there because people want freedom, and there's variety when there's freedom. And he doesn't want it when people do bad stuff. He could say, no bad stuff for you. Your free will, I'm taking your free will away. Krishna doesn't do that. There's consequences. There's a consequence for Vali expelling his younger brother from the kingdom for just no cause. He was for no cause. It was a perceived reason that was based on his pride. Okay, good.
Maharaj, I had a couple of questions.
Uh-huh.
Yes, you were hearing about how Vishwamitra is also the Brahmana who arranged for Krishna and Rukmini and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So is there information of Vali and Sugriva in their pastime, if they were in Krishna's pastimes and Mahaprabhu's pastimes?
I have no idea. I mean, the only place I could think to look is Gaura Gonadesh Dipika and see, put Vali and Sugriva in and see if something comes up. Did they have some role in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes? And maybe, I don't know.
It'd just be interesting to see how these personalities are filled with richness in the Ramayana, how they play out when they...
Okay. I can do that quickly, but I won't do it while we're talking. I'll be distracted.
The other question, Maharaj, I had was, I really like what Stira Mataji brought up. What you had said is, Sugriva wobbled on the sense level, but not at the heart level. And then I was thinking of, in his case, he was really saved by Lakshman coming and strongly chastising him. And then
Hanuman first
helping him, yeah. And I was thinking of Yamunacharya, and he kind of got lost being the king, and then his superiors helped him out, and the Brahmana came and talked to him, and then he got convinced.
Yes.
So, and my thoughts were then going to, in our Krishna consciousness movement, we have lots of examples where we wobble at the sense level, and then people distance themselves from, I guess, the path of bhakti. So what's the difference for how to know that persons are wobbling at the sense level versus the heart level, and whether it's worthwhile reaching
Well, that
out.
was her question.
That was more for personal versus.
But the answer doesn't change. Now, in the case of these examples, Dhruva and Sugriva, a word was sufficient. There are some people I know where, the word, you need words steadily over a period of time. So, the covering may be greater, or the heart may be weaker, or combination. So it kind of takes an intuitive sense or a spiritual sense or some spiritual acumen to be able to understand what is someone's orientation, in this lifetime at least, towards Krishna. And so there may be some movement, weakness that comes because of whatever it is, circumstance or life changes or something like that. But when you're close to somebody and you know at the heart level where they are, then you can. I've said this to devotees. I don't. I know your heart, and this isn't you, or something like that. Without giving examples. There's examples, but there's somebody I know somewhere that they had, and probably still to some degree have, a tendency to see something and speak out strongly about that something, without necessarily having a clear, holistic picture of the situation. And they did that a number of times, and did it a number of times, and did it a number of times, and then they took a course hearing the meanings of some Sanskrit terms, and they heard the meaning of sadhu ninda. And then they realized, whoops. And they wrote a letter saying, whoops, what should I do now? Because I acted thinking I was right, but my speech wasn't consistent with Vaishnava behavior. What should I do now? So there's a remedy. But, all along, and they said, you're, et cetera, et cetera. So, you saw me doing these things and you didn't, slam me. Without going into details. It would have been the wrong thing to do when certain situation X, Y, and Z came up. That person needed something else besides having a finger shaken at them. They needed something else. And because that something else was given, anyway, the trust in the relationship, so they can come forward and say, I've made offenses. I made a number of offenses. Now what should I do? Because if that kind of discussion couldn't have happened at a certain point in time. But because at heart they're very sincere. So by various means Krishna has brought. So that's faith in the bhakti principle, and the heart of the devotee that genuinely wants what the fruit of bhakti has. Although generally speaking, because we're covered, we have a different sense of what bhakti has to offer. then, and an unalloyed relationship with Krishna, there's other things that are in the mind and in the heart. But the deeper level, that someone really wants their relationship with Krishna. And there's some people that want that. And some people, that's a little more remote.
They are neighbors.
Yeah, I just have a question. Basically, I know that in that after we had the Mahabharata, and the war, I know like after the Pandavas, once they go to heaven, they see all the like Duryodhana and all his brothers, they were also in heaven. But why were they in heaven? Because I think they do question that why they are, because they were actually fighting against them. It was like, like Lord Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas, and they were fighting evil. It was like, so my question, like, why do they see all the Kauravas, Duryodhana and all his brothers also in heaven, while Pandavas are also going in heaven after they died?
Here's a few answers to that question. Those who there's an understanding that's I came across, not elaborated upon, but the understanding goes like this: that there's a place, there's a part of heaven or a place in heaven where those who there's a Sanskrit term. Those that engage in fighting go to a something svarga. So there's a place in heaven where those who are kshatriyas who die in battle go to, in the heavenly region. No, there's details and there's rules and there's things like that, but there is such a place, according to things that I've come across. It's not prominently mentioned, it's not elaborated upon, and I can't, if you probe, you won't get much. There is such a place. Virya, Swarga, or something like that. Something like that. And so, one of the messages of Mahabharata is exactly as you said, right and wrong. And, good and bad, dharma and adharma, like that. So, certainly the Kauravas are on the side of adharma, no question about it, for a variety of reasons. And their adversity to the Pandavas, who are on the side of virtue, is one of the main adharmas, because that means they're against Krishna, because they're connected to Krishna, so they're against Krishna. That's not just our dharma, it's aparad. There's a difference between sin and offense, and it's offensive. So a third response is that the explanation of Mahabharata, because it's focused on dharma and adharma, is different than the explanation of Srimad Bhagavatam, because it's not focused on simply dharma adharma, it's focused on paradharma, or transcendence, not just heaven and hell, or good and bad, or virtue and vice, but transcendence. So the explanation in the Srimad Bhagavatam is the Pandavas, in their self-same bodies, returned to the spiritual world. They didn't go to heaven, or didn't. There's other things that are said in Mahabharata about what they saw. And they saw an illusory hell that was created by Indra, but it was an illusory hell, and they didn't actually go to hell. So they went to heaven. But it's not what the Bhagavatam speaks about, because it has another purpose, an ultimate purpose, transcendence, beyond heaven, beyond the fruits of piety and dharma. as paradharma. So go back down to the principle of the dharma. I think that's the name. Virya Svarga. They may have attained such a place. I'm not well read in Mahabharata either. Less. Okay. More online? Let's go online and then we're going to end. Anything back there in the balcony seats? Okay.
I had a quick question because the discussion about wobbly at the sense and wobbly in the heart, and I was wondering, is there any hope for someone who might feel wobbly at the heart, and what do you do with that part?
Sure, sadhusanga, and all that goes with sadhusanga, sangha from the heart and supposing the heart is wobbly, and you have sadhusanga, then what? Well, keep close to sadhus, and the heart will become stronger.
This is from Radhika. Okay. Varnashrama system is there in animals too?
In animals too? No.
Because there was some reference to Varnashrama.
No.
And sub question is, are Sugriva, Vali, Hanuman half monkey and half human as we see the paintings of them?
As far as I can recall from those who are scholars of Ramayana, they're not monkeys and they're not humans, they're Vanaras. What's a Vanara? Well, it's not a monkey and it's not a human. It's another entity that may look like but isn't a monkey. And then there's powers that monkeys don't have, and this and that and the other kind of powers, shape-changing powers and all kinds of things like that. But it's another category, and exactly what a Vanara is, it's easier to say what it isn't than what it is. But they're painted. Artists have lots of license. They do things with their paintings that aren't necessarily according to what Scripture actually says. Artists can do that. But Hanuman is a monkey form. He's a Vanara with a monkey form, but he's not a monkey. He's a Vanara. They speak and they learn Sanskrit and they have rules that they follow. Monkeys don't have rules they follow. They look like, but they're not a monkey. Okay.
This is the last question from Sucharita Devidasi again. With all due respect to Tara, I was wondering, why should her advice be treated like it's always appropriate?
Because she gives good advice. Huh? One who gives good advice, their advice should be treated as good advice. Doesn't matter. There was an earlier question, but it's not all persons or some persons. Are there some persons whose advice should always be taken? You can consider even persons that give good advice. There may be other factors to be considered than their good advice. Unless it's, somebody that with whom there is a relationship and a trust that, let's say, our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, when he gave advice, it was to be taken. Period. That's the relationship with a perfected person. Their advice is to be taken. Now, does that mean Tara was a perfected person? Well, she is certainly a very elevated person. So her advice is worthy accepting. Okay. Prabhupada ki jai.